Hi everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of December the 13th, 2021. We have a very active sky playing out all throughout the week, and fortunately but also unfortunately, the main theme of this period continues. So this week is gonna be just another week where the pressure is on maximum, but we do have two very powerful and important energy shifts, which are definitely going to make a massive difference. So this is where things do begin to change, they do begin to transform. The emphasis is going to be placed around matters of emotion, feeling, love, desire, passion. We might experience a very strong intensity in this particular aspect of ourselves. But of course, what, or better said, who stirs that passion, that very strong emotion, that strong desire to have what we want or to live that which we desire the most? While it is going to be extremely motivating in all possible sense, even the not so favorable sense, because, under this energy, a lot of people, especially at the very beginning of the week, are going to experience a certain kind of impatience and frustration. Of course, collectively, that can be also a lot of anger, violence, the frustration expressed in the most, gruesome ways. Because Mars is going to be the planet of war, the planet of instinct, of impulse, at the so-called 29 degrees of Scorpio. It is extremely powerful in this part of the sky because it is the ruling planet. The ancient ruling planet, of course. And this is a degree where the symbolism, especially the more extreme and aggressive symbolism of that planet, is greatly amplified. So in this part of the sky, at this degree, we have a very concentrated, focused, singular, aggressive, irritated, obsessive, and frustrated Mars, who is also like his way or the highway, and is capable of anything to get what it wants, even if that something is, for example, to express its anger. Something more violent, something almost criminal of nature. So that's why the beginning of the week is definitely going to be very tensioned, especially collectively speaking. Crime rates, sexual related crimes, anything that has to do with anger, outburst, or projecting our not so favorable sides, feelings, emotions, and judgment, especially judgment onto other people. Well, that's going to be a big issue, so we will definitely be seeing that playing out on the world stage, and quite possibly in our individual lives as well. Like, for example, we may snap, we may say a lot of angry words without even realizing it, because the other power player, who is exactly at an erratic degree and very uncomfortable, is Mercury, being at 29 degrees of the sign of Sagittarius. Its exile sign is the opposite sign of Gemini, the sign which it rules. And especially at an erratic degree, well, Mercury may not really be able to control himself, so symbolically speaking, our tongue, our communication, that which we speak, that which we express verbally, writtenly, very quickly. Because at the end of the day, Sagittarius is also very passionate, very opinionated, and quite possibly in the dark side of Sagittarius is judgment, so judgmental energy. So Mercury is gonna spit out a lot of venom, especially at the beginning of the week. So we have to be careful to truly think everything through, even 10 times if needed, before we say it. And to control this highly aggressive Mars, well, one of the tactics is to put ourselves in that person's position and see how we would react under such circumstances. Or better said, just mentally, if possible, envisage what kind of effect our violent, let's say, reaction would have on ourselves, our situation, the other person. So basically a very, very objective outlook of what could result if we give way to the anger, if we speak that horrible, offensive word that we want to speak out, or if we cast our judgment on other people or a situation, etc. So at the beginning of the week, we really have to be careful with this. Angry words and saying things that we don't necessarily mean. Words which can be misinterpreted, or leading someone on without actually intending this or without knowing that we're doing this. So always think before you act or before you take action, before you react to any kind of stimulant, irritant, etc. But fortunately also at the beginning of the week, both of these planets are going to change signs, so that is a very strong energy shift because it's happening at the same time on the same day. Mars leaves its ancient ruling sign of Scorpio and enters Sagittarius, which normally should be a very big sigh of relief, if that makes sense. Because in this part of the sky, Mars has a certain kind of optimistic, elevated, dreamy quality to him. So the desires and aspirations and the actions can have a higher purpose, can have a higher meaning. You know, what motivates our Mars at this time is more philosophical. It is more, basically where we take into consideration the big picture. Sagittarius is the sign of the foreigner, the international. So basically, we may conclude other people into our equations as well, into our desires. Sagittarius is the home sign of Jupiter. So when the planet of action enters in that area of the sky, well, it will want to do a lot of Jupiterian things, if that makes sense. And that has a really good side to it. Jupiter is generous. Jupiter is the planet of blessings, the big benefic, if that makes sense, as the ancients called it. So we will want to be blessings or a source of good intent in the lives of others. This is really good. Sagittarius Mars also likes to study, to embrace knowledge, to embrace different perspectives, to experience that which is extravagant, exotic, unusual. So there is a strong sense of curiosity attached to it. And the highest expression of Sagittarius Mars, when it has to fight, when it has to show its worth itself, prove itself in battle, it likes to fight with exactly what Sagittarius is good at: knowledge, wisdom, the highest philosophies, if this is applicable. It always has an ideal or a highest principle, and that is really, really good. The dark side of this, well, Sagittarius is extravagant. It has no bounds, it has no limits. It is a mutable fire sign. So Mars can shoot arrows in a million different directions. It may have problems to concentrate on one single focus, and it may just shoot out volleys of arrows, where all of this is naturally symbolic. The arrows representing action, desires, intent, where we place our energy and focus. So it can be very, very erratic. And the darkest side of Mars in this part of the sky, well, I'm pretty sure that we're going to be experiencing this towards the end of December. And also, a big moment of this, according to my calculations, is later on in the month when Mars opposes Dark Moon Lilith in the sign of Gemini. That can be extreme judgment. That can be, giving a very harsh, cruel, and perhaps unforgiving verdict onto someone, a situation, maybe the self, maybe we may judge something that we have done not so long ago, or something that we want to accomplish, something that we desire, and we may simply judge it. We may not really allow ourselves or be compassionate and understanding enough with ourselves to give way to the desire. So sometimes the dark side of the Sagittarius Mars is directed exactly towards the self. And on the world stage, this definitely means religious fanaticism or certain not so favorable action committed in the name of religion. Sagittarius is also the sign of justice, the law, international legislation, international travels. So a lot is going to change around those issues, legally speaking, maybe constitutional changes, because we must not forget that, yes, Mars usually takes Mars 2 years to transit around the zodiac, but we're not living very usual times, if that makes sense. So Mars is the planet of activation, and when it activates a sign in the present, so right now, during this really strong world change, especially later on when it meets Pluto, its higher octave in the sign of Capricorn, well, it's a much stronger, much more intense, much more profoundly felt activation than in any other time before. So basically, even our state of consciousness affects how this Mars is going to activate certain energies in the sky. And because all of us, in our own unique, special ways, are kind of judgmental right now, because we have to be. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but when our rational, empirical brains, minds cannot make sense of reality and what's going on, the higher functions activate, and we seek answers, in a philosophical way. We seek a non-linearly logical knowledge or source of information, and judgment does need to activate there, because we have to judge for ourselves what is true and what is not. And when we're operating from this, let's say, function, you can imagine that judgment, without us even knowing, willing, or being aware of it, extends onto certain areas where it shouldn't be extended to, if that makes sense. And I already see this playing out in the world so very clearly, because we had to do this massive brainstorming, and as I said, including spiritually and basically philosophically, whatever that means for everyone personally. I kind of saw very, very non-judgmental people who were totally not judgmental before 2020, all of a sudden show a different side to themselves, where they may judge the vaccinated, for example, where they might not be so compassionate and tolerant towards people and their situation who kind of represent the opposite ideology of what they believe in. So, this kind of revealed a certain judgmental side to all of us, where we may tell ourselves that we're not judgmental and we don't judge, yet sometimes life just brings it out from us, and we may surprise ourselves in not the most favorable sense. But ultimately, this is where the sky, first of all, is a mirror. So it basically mirrors that which is inside of us, regardless if we are aware of it or not. And moving on, the other energy shift is where Mercury leaves its exile of Sagittarius and enters the sign of Capricorn, a part of the sky where it embodies its more manager-like, entrepreneurial, very, very down-to-earth qualities. We have in this part of the sky a very rational, a very diligent, experienced, almost calculating Mercury who needs to keep everything together. It wants to be in control. And the way Mercury can be in control of everything is knowledge, is statistics, data, basically knowing and the inner structure of everything in our lives, that which is a mental energy. So at least when we mentally know the blueprint, we know what's going on, we know what we need to do, the priorities, the tasks, that which depends on us, that which depends on another person or a situation. So this is the kind of Mercury who is like a really good and diligent manager. The darker side to it is that it needs to be in control. It kind of needs to have a grip mentally on everything that's going on in life. So, more arcane matters, more emotional matters, or certain matters where you are just an observer because you're not in control of life. You don't even understand the mechanisms and functions, etc. That will make this Capricorn Mercury rather uncomfortable because it needs to know. It needs to understand. It needs to be in communication with everything. But ultimately, the good side and the positive side is much more important, and that is it gets things done. This is a moment in the year, because Mercury enters this part of the sky every single year, when people kind of, even mentally, they get down from the candy clouds, they get down from the ivory tower, they get down to earth basically, and make certain plans, choices, think through things in a very tactical way. It's also a good period to ask for help, a professional, someone with greater experience than yourself, a good advice giver, regardless if it's a friend or you go to them professionally, etc. This is a really good period to, get the big picture together. Make the schematic, clear it, cleanse it, readjust it, and then go for it. Now, of course, Mercury will retrograde back into this part of the sky next year, but this period, the pre-Mercury retrograde period, is also very important, because slowly and surely everything that we will need to work on, the issues, are going to be highlighted and they're going to concern us. We're going to think about them. We might feel a certain anxiety, but I don't mean the Schumann resonance kind of anxiety, but just a mental unrest that we need to find at least a solution, a potential plan for those matters which concern us the most. And of course, where the sign of Capricorn falls into your personal chart, that will be the area of life under the strong influence of Mercury. But at the end of the day, this is a really good energy shift, because Mercury has to be grounded here. Capricorn is still the top of the sky, so everyone's very unique life path and those energies which are going to be embodied collectively. So even if for those people who don't have Capricorn as their midheaven, the general energy of Capricorn has still something to do with everyone's life path, if that makes sense. So it will definitely influences, it will make the correlation of, regardless which area of life this energy falls into your own personal chart, that will still be one way correlated to your material life, to your life path, career perhaps, or what are you doing as a human being in the world. This is also the part of the sky where Venus will go retrograde on the 19th of December. That is when she stands still in the sky, stops and starts going retrograde. And this is also a period when Venus physically is closest to our planet. So her symbolism all throughout this week is going to be greatly amplified, because what she's doing this week is standing still, coming to a standstill, and just hanging out with Pluto. So not only is she greatly amplified, but she's also in a conjunction with Pluto. And that is the element which adds the great emotional intensity. Now Venus is going to hold this conversation 3 times. Even though technically speaking, maybe it's just 2 times, because she's going retrograde technically speaking while being conjunct Pluto. So that's both the first and the second time in one. And maybe that is what adds so much intensity to it. Then she'll go retrograde, disjunct Pluto, then come yet again to a standstill, and then she'll start going direct, following her shadow path. She will meet Pluto for the third and final time later on in March, if I'm not mistaken. But of course, Venus and Pluto conjunct together are not really the single power players that add a lot of tension and intensity. We still have the Saturn and Uranus square slowly and surely getting more exact by the day. Their exact square is going to take place on the 24th of December. So what a Christmas we're going to have. We also have both Venus and Pluto conjunct, holding a square with Eris, goddess of discord. That adds the collective pressure, the great collective unrest, the material, financial, transactional part of this energy collectively that will go haywire very soon. And then we also have, at the very beginning of the week, the Sun holding a sextile with Neptune, a well-needed, harmonious celestial conversation, because this gives us the strength to stay optimistic, to stay hopeful, to believe, to sometimes when there's no other rational explanation, rational anticipation, if that makes sense, which can give us a certain kind of comfort that even if we are not doing that fantastic right now, we have the future to look forward to, and our opportunity or our breakthrough is definitely coming. Well, that is the energy that is going to provide us exactly this. The Sun in the sign of Sagittarius, philosophical, optimistic, embodying faith, embodying our inner strength, our inner truth basically, conversing harmoniously with Neptune, the divine source, in the karmic sign of Pisces. So this does give us a lot of comfort, a lot of strength, faith, being able to anchor ourselves deeply in our inner truth. And of course, this is also an alchemical energy where whatever we focus on a lot might just manifest in our lives. Because as I said, Mars is also going to be in this part of the sky. Mars is the planet of action, our intention. The glyph of Mars is an arrow. The glyph of Sagittarius is also an arrow. So this is definitely the moment to shoot the arrow of our desires into the heart or mind of the divine, if that makes sense. And we might have a very powerful moment this week for that at the very, very end of the week on the 18th or 19th of December, depending on where you are on the planet, when we have the Gemini full moon, which comes as an energetic and also karmic, how should I say, synergy or a kind of soothing balm, if that makes sense, to complete the very potent and quite heavy solar eclipse in the Sagittarius that we had on the 4th. So before I move on to speak about this full moon in the sign of Gemini at the end of the week, I would still like to say a couple of important key elements about the Venus and Pluto conjunction, because that is an energy that's going to stay with us all throughout this week and next week, so it's going to have a major influence. Well, on one hand, this is the energy of desire, Pluto and its intensity meeting the principle of love and beauty, Venus, the planet of magnetism, the planet of value, the planet of sensuality. So we can imagine that our emotional worlds are definitely going to be pretty much restless. And, Venus in Capricorn, our desires, our needs, in a very down-to-earth, realistic, material way. We may have a very, let's say, spiritual kind of Venus. where we want love and passion and beauty in our lives, regardless in which shape and form. Living it subjectively, psychologically, on a soul level is more important for that kind of Venus. Yet, in this part of the sky in Capricorn, all of that needs to have a physical expression as well. So basically, even the big romantic people who have like an exalted Venus in Pisces, for example, are definitely this time around gonna feel the need for whatever that Venus represents for them personally, their sensuality, love, passion for their career, for their life path, for a person, sexual, sensual desires, the five senses needing to be satisfied. Regardless of what that Venus means for us personally, we will want to feel this in a very down-to-earth way. And with matters of sensuality and sexuality, well, it's quite simple, That's the least complicated expression of this energy, even though the intensity is gonna be really, really high. Yet when it comes to career, life path, money, finances, Pluto, the great rich person, if that makes sense, in the zodiac, the planet of wealth, the symbolism of Mammon, if that makes sense. So Venus is also currency, value, material well-being, and when these two planets of wealth meet in the sky, well, we will need it. We will need money, but in a stable way, in a safe and secure way. So this will, one way or another, urge us to fight, work, attract, obtain however we can greater security in our lives. May that represent a partner who is committed, so that may represent the element of security. May that be money, may that be stable career, job, income, livelihood, everything that has to do with these themes. And globally and collectively, well, this energy reveals secrets. What happened to the money? What did centralized power, Capricorn, do with certain funds, transactions, the world economy, a country's economy, a city's economy? So this can also affect the local community. What happened with the money? And then, as I said, Aries squares all of this energy. Aries is the freedom fighter. Aries demands the truth. This wasn't fair, that wasn't fair. This was corrupt, that was corrupt. This was a hidden business. So this will basically greatly amplify everyone meaning the key people here, who is like an investigator. They will start digging deep of what happened financially. Aries, again, the symbolism of Aries, the rights of the individual, fairness, equality regarding repartition of help, resources, and even the legislation. As I said, Mars in Sagittarius. How is the legislation fair? How is it equal? How is it serving everyone regardless of their social background? What happens to businesses further? Another expression is oil prices, fuel prices, Pluto in Capricorn. What happens in that area? Banks changing their terms and conditions, legislation, Mars in Sagittarius, Venus meeting Pluto in Capricorn. And also, Pluto and Venus, earning the fruits of your labor, not just symbolically speaking, not just you deserve this and that, but physically, where is the money? And even if you have the money, you want to spend it. Venus, of course, the five senses. You want to go on holiday, you want to do this, that. You already have the money. But if a legislation, if, a rule coming from centralized power that you cannot go, you cannot travel, you cannot do this, that, and that, well, you can imagine Aries, the freedom fighter. She's not going to tolerate this. So this is how spirits are definitely going to be sparked up. And also we have the full moon in Gemini. Moon, from an international perspective, well, it's the emotional states of people. Gemini has a rebellious quality to it, just like Aquarius. It's in the third decan of Gemini, the decan of Aquarius. Uranian energy, rebellion, revolution, unrest, rising up. Gemini is also about equality, the twins. So this is how the Pluto and Venus conjunction squaring Eris is going to link in and fit in perfectly with the full moon in Gemini theme, especially from a collective perspective, because I do believe that individually it can be very, very favorable, and why exactly we're going to see in a second. But before I move on to the full moon, another expression of Venus and Pluto together is fated encounters, fated meetings, attraction, physical attraction, but also a soul level kind of attraction, becoming so attracted with someone or maybe even something to the point of obsession. Like someone discovers a new hobby and they are like swept over there, they enjoy it so much. The spark of passion and love ignites, and that can be, not just for a person or sexually speaking, it can be in so very many ways. You discover something that appeals to your inner Venus and you can't get enough of it, for example. Now, the negative expression of this, infidelity or certain temptation which are irresistible, but Pluto is secret. Anything that is in the closet, especially regarding love and sexuality, well, under this Venus retrograde season, it's definitely not going to stay in the closet. And we also have a different kind of celestial conversation, Mercury speaking in supreme harmony with Uranus. Uranus being the higher octave of Mercury, truth, facts, numbers, dates, things being revealed. Sometimes surprisingly, sometimes coincidentally, sometimes as a Freudian slip, etc., etc. So this will reveal a lot of secrets, both individually, what we've done with who, and collectively. And collectively speaking, this can be sexual scandals or crimes of sexual nature. So collectively, it's going to be very important. And perhaps life-changing for those who are guilty. Now, to get back to the full moon, well, this is a very important celestial conversation. As I said, this can complement, in a way, act like a soothing balm to make whatever wounds the eclipse stirred up seem that much lighter, to make us feel better, etc. Because one of the key aspects that this Gemini full moon holds is a beautiful trine with Jupiter, and the trine has a very, very tight orb, which is absolutely wonderful. Jupiter, on one hand, is the ruling planet of Sagittarius, where the sun illuminates the moon from, and it holds a trine, an air trine with the moon in Gemini, which means it holds a sextile with the sun in its home sign of Sagittarius. So this can be quite a lucky, healing, soothing, complement-based energy for a lot of people. The way I see this energy is when the universe handed down to Earth a lot of, not so easy events, realizations, communications, or inner epiphanies at the time of the Sagittarius solar eclipse. We had a lot of releasing to do as well because it was a South Node eclipse, and now it hands us a comfort. That comfort can come from acquaintances, Aquarius. It can come from someone totally new, someone who we have never met before, someone who appears in our life like a surprise, like a delight, like a force of inspiration or optimism, joy, hope, humor, laughter, lightheartedness. All of these have a lot to do with Gemini. And at the same time, Aquarius is people. People, it can even be total strangers out there, but if we are connected by fate, the trine, it can make our lives that much more beautiful. Words, communication, that which they speak, that which they share with us, that which they even project on us, can be extremely delightful. It can also come from our relatives, cousins, siblings. Gemini rules this expression of energy. It can also represent our circle of friends, social circle. It can represent people who have a lot to do with our work. Maybe not necessarily colleagues, but people who we are connected to via work. A customer, a client, someone from another company who you know. So this can come through as either good news, praises, flirt. Maybe someone will chat you up, someone who you least expect, and it will make you feel so good about yourself. It can be an invitation to travel here and there, to go to, for example, your friend's place and spend some time together. It can also be something very significant related to your future plans, future goals, your dreams, or maybe a future project, a plan, an intellectual act of creation, something that you wrote, something that you are willing to accomplish, something that you might have started not so long ago, but it wasn't finished, or you were interrupted, or you had to prioritize something else, may as a surprise return in your life in a completed form without effort. This is very easy energy. This also has a psychological side. Gemini is the mind, the lower mind. This can represent what a healthy mindset, way of thinking can do in your life. Jupiter is blessing, optimistic, your inner truth. The moon, your emotional world in the sign of Gemini, where emotion meets with ration. So positive thoughts, optimistic thoughts, your faith woven into your lower mind as well. Well, it can do miracles, can't it? As I said, this full moon takes place under Venus meeting Pluto in the sky, but where Venus goes retrograde on that day, so she is extremely intense. Fated meetings, Gemini. Maybe you meet a soulmate, a lover. Gemini in the tarot is the lovers, one-on-one relationships. Maybe you meet someone new who you instantly have that spark with, who you can instantly connect with. Someone who kind of triggers the Gemini connection in our lives, if that makes sense. And what I mean by this is Gemini sees someone who they respect and accept, etc., regardless of what reason. They perceive them as a sibling, as a different expression of their own selves. And this is what's so very magical about Gemini. For example, when they care for their partners, they don't care for them as you would be caring for a separate person, but as if that person would be the self. And they do this instinctually. So it's not like they even do this with that great awareness, they just do it. It's within their instincts. And this is why the expression of this energy makes Gemini such a very, very attractive partner in any way, shape or form. Team player, a one-on-one alliance, romantically in bed, even as a soul brother or sister, even as a soulmate kind of connection. Gemini has this very strong capacity to instinctually just treat the other like it would itself. So this goes beyond compassion, because the very principle of compassion is not even thought out at that moment. It is just how they are instinctually. And of course, Gemini, the ludic spirit, humor, etc., lightheartedness, the adolescent of the zodiac. So if you meet a person like this, imagine the laughter, imagine the giggles, the flirt. imagine that they will just make you feel like you're living in a different dimension or universe. Now, from a psychological perspective, what this celestial conversation does, well, it fills up a void. We had a lot of eclipses this year. We had a Gemini solar eclipse. Then we had Sagittarius eclipses. And all of these have to do with identity. Gemini, our conditioned identity, who we think and know that we are, in a down-to-earth way, of course. Sagittarius is our spiritual identity, our worldviews, our principles, our ideals, the higher self's identity, basically, because we are not attracted to an ideal, to faith, to principle, to higher thinking, to our own personal philosophies for no reason. That's basically the soul. And the soul, the moon, is in the sign of Gemini at this time, trined by Jupiter, the inner truth. And the most important part, the sun is conjunct the galactic center, the very source, the core of the divine, the epitome of the divine intelligence, basically where our own galaxy converses with other galaxies. So that's a very, very important conjunction, making it a full moon, a big termination, a projection, a reflection, a completion, a culmination. The galactic center is pure creational energy. So the eclipses purged out a lot of our conditioned identity. We had to release the part of the self who no longer resonated, who we no longer identified with. We had to leave that, to die, to transform, to embrace the void, so to speak, Pluto. But, purging is one element of healing, but it also needs a certain kind of regeneration. So this energy of this Gemini full moon comes as a nourishing of our new identity that we need to yet be co-creating, to embrace that future. But that needs Jupiter, the inner truth, right? And that also needs the infinite knowledge and wisdom of the divine, the galactic center. Because we cannot co-create that part of ourselves unless we attract an experience or an expression of an energy into our lives which will mirror it to us. So this is like being in perfect synchronicity with the divine mind. This is where it infuses us with that mental quantum lattice, so a blueprint, which will help us to regenerate our identity, if this even makes sense to a lot of people. Because a true identity, especially here in an incarnated form, is not as simple. We have the ego, as in the conditioned self, everything that we learned, everything that we picked up, along with our instincts and the instinctual self. But then we also have the soul, the moon, who we are as a soul, as a spirit, as a projection of that spirit, as the very core of our beings, that which basically gives even the higher self the possibility to express itself, to exist. And these two are not sufficient, because there's that part of us which is continually evolving, changing, going with the flow, learning, processing, alchemizing, taking things in, eliminating other things, drawing the conclusions of what it means to live here on earth. So that part of us is like a continuous co-creation. It's basically the inner child experiencing all dimensions of itself. So that part of us which we had to operate out because of the eclipses, which we had to abandon, which we had to discard, and it left a void deep within us, where, maybe it's just me, but maybe it's also you guys. this year I kind of asked myself a lot, do I even know who I am? Because the transformational energy and the purges and everything was that profound that it kind of purged out everything that I thought I knew about myself. Turned out that I didn't really. And I do believe that I'm not the only person like this. We may know who we are in our conditioning, but do we really know who we are when we're free? Do we really know what preferences in life, in anything, we have if we are truly free? If we are kings of our own castle? If we embrace our true identity as a soul and our spirit, but also the freedom to co-create, to go where we wish to go? Do we actually know ourselves, and can we anticipate our own reactions, experiences, feelings when the unknown meets a totally different kind of setup, a total different kind of scenario, where the primal, the uncreated, unformed child, divine child from within us, meets the great unknown, chance, chaos, hazard. Something will be created that is outside our power to anticipate. Regardless of how well we know ourselves, we can still not know how that which is unborn within us will be born when the moment comes. But the divine mind, the galactic center basically, it knows. It knows its creation so well that it can foresee anything. So that is why the way I perceive this full moon acting as a soothing balm is the download, where we get that soul level but also mental level food that we will need to unpack as a computer unpacks like a zip file as we go along all throughout next week. And why I say it's also mental, well, our minds are also going to be different. Our mindsets are going to be different. There are still a lot of events, yes, global events, but who knows, also in our individual lives that still are yet to shock us, to surprise us, to blow our minds, because that is the times that we live. Let me just say a couple of these events. Saturn-Uranus square in December. Mars meeting Pluto, the Mars and Pluto conjunction. That will kind of shatter a lot of our old normality and our old hopes and dreams. Then we have Jupiter entering Pisces, healing, purging, dissolving the past. Then we have Jupiter meeting Neptune and Venus in the sign of Pisces, the Scorpionic third decan. That is going to be ultra transformative. That's going to be like, for a moment or for a couple of days, truly being able to embody our souls in a way which maybe no generation alive today had the chance to do, because not every generation catches Neptune in Pisces. We are quite lucky, and also a little bit unlucky in that sense. Unlucky, well, Neptune is also lie, illusion, psychological warfare and all that, so that's the unlucky part. And then we have, or better said even before it gets to the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction, the nodes of the moon into Taurus-Scorpio axis, South Node in Scorpio, secrets, the occult, our own unconscious, our own stored memories and experiences from an emotional perspective, because what's in the house of Scorpio, the 8th house, so in the sign of Scorpio, even the soul remembers that, not just the brain. Whatever happened there is our, journal when we leave this life, and we can read back everything that happened to us, who it is that we were, what choices we made. And the South Node in Scorpio, well, everything that makes us toxic, everything that makes us rigid and fixed, everything that we like to complicate. Scorpio is complication, research, detective work, So we want to get into the complications. Taurus is simple. Taurus is rudimentally. And ultimately, it is the rudimentary things in life which are the greatest value. Like, for example, €1,000,000, well, big value, no one can deny that. But compare that to the simple fact of breathing, being alive, feeling your physical body, having physical integrity. The €1,000,000 fades away immediately to anyone who is conscious and sane enough to have a healthy value system. So the nodes of the moon shifting are gonna teach us a very valuable lesson that we will never ever ever forget as long as we live, about what value truly means, about what is truly valuable to life. With the South Node in Scorpio, well, a lot of people are gonna just give up on their money, if that even makes sense, because they will no longer want to have it control their lives, and they will return to simplicity. Taurus, to nature, to the earth, to the small joys of life, to generosity, to working in a totally different way, whatever work means, even career, than they have never done before. The joy of being part of a community where your work makes another person happy, where your work changes someone else's everyday normality, where the joy and lived experience of being there for someone in any way, shape or form, as in with your work influencing their lives, the joy and value of that is what we're returning to. And ultimately, when someone lives the pleasure and joy of the five senses, but in an elevated expression, so there is a lot of morality, spirituality, and psychological well-being attached to this as well, that will unleash the frequency of true joy and happiness in the world. So this is such an important time. And what can delete traumas? What can delete anger, frustration, envy, jealousy, doom and gloom, our old deep wounds and pains, where the world one way or another wronged the Scorpio, the South Node in Scorpio? Well, it's only the happiness, the joy, the love, being able to feel that we're truly alive and it matters to us. And living all of this with maturity. So this is not like we stepped into a new dimension where let's discover what happiness and love and stuff like that looks like. No. This is where we already know the theory. We spiritually and psychologically already reached a powerful maturity, and now we step into this by already knowing what it means, how grateful we are for it, how much we need it, and that ultimately this is our healing, and that maturity makes everything different. But I'm so sorry for being carried away. Let's get back to the full moon in the sign of Gemini. I'm gonna have a separate recording about this anyway. Another celestial conversation which I find very interesting. The moon is gonna be holding a quincunx with Pluto. That means automatically that it's gonna hold a Venus as well. Quincunx is a surprise, an awkwardness, randomness, weirdness, something surprising, unexpected, something that might shock us deeply, because that's what Pluto and the moon do in a quincunx together. It is gonna be like an emotional shock, but usually it's not really what it seems. For example, something happens to a friend, you get shocked, scared, and you go to them straight away. A news just reaching you, Gemini, after all. And what happens, whatever problem your friend had, you're probably gonna help them. But as you live that part of the quincunx, maybe you're gonna randomly get connected to another person, and fate kind of used your friend's urgency, necessity to call you, phone you, ask for your help, to get you connected in a fated way with that friend. So this is just an example that when there is a moon and Pluto quincunx, nothing is as it seems. Fate is working hard. But fate will lure you, allure you, get you into a position or a place or a situation, a state where you need to be for something else to happen. Something else, something Venusian. Either for you to witness something, to find out a secret, to get connected to someone, or the right circumstances for you to, let's say, have a romantic meeting with someone, for example. But all of this is absolutely wonderful individually. Collectively, however, this is shock. This is something that will unsettle us. Maybe someone VIP, for example, passes on, or there is going to be something shocking, worrying, financial or sexual in nature that will be revealed, especially Gemini news, media channels, communication channels, social media. So something will shock us, something will unsettle us, something will surprise us. And also at the same time, as I said, Mercury holds the trine with Uranus. This is also the energy of shock, surprise, but delight. This is good news with the Uranus and Mercury, or unexpected or lucky, fortunate, synchronistic, right place at the right time kind of coincidences. It may be weird, it may be a little bit awkward, but it's really good intended. It's a good kind of constructive, helpful, useful truth that it wants to reveal to you. So that's why I do think that from at least an individual perspective, this can be a very lucky full moon when something or someone just pops up in your life that's going to add a lot of value. Uranus in Taurus, psychological, emotional, sexual, any other kind of value, but value will be added to your life. And with the Pluto and Moon quincunx, well, we never know. The universe works in mysterious ways. So let's just live and see what happens. So basically, this concludes the horoscope for next week. I'm gonna have a special recording with this full moon in Gemini later on in the week. Thank you so much everyone for listening, for all the likes, shares, beautiful comments and all your support. If you'd like to keep on supporting my channel and my work, you can donate in the PayPal link in the description below. And with this being said, all I can say is hold on, be strong, try to use this full moon to your greatest advantage, because this might be one of those moments when, yes, the pressure's on, everything is chaotic, everything's doom and gloom basically, everything is lies, Neptune out there. But if the universe surprises us with a delightful, beautiful, surprising moment, a positive feedback, a good advice, anything delightful, we have to embrace that full on and let the intelligence and strength and ultimate wisdom, the infinite, the absolute wisdom of the universe, galactic center, to guide us to exactly where we need to be. And for those of you who are single and looking, this is gonna be a week with a lot of opportunities, I can tell you that much. So thank you again, until next time, bye for now.